So that's my attitude to John Paul II. I have severe difficulties with a lot he has done and a lot he does. I just can't accept those things, but it doesn't mean the Pope is wrong or is bad or cease to be Pope. It means I can't accept it, and I'm not bound to accept it. So can't one be reasonably different from the Pope and yet be a good Catholic? Of course one can. Someday the Church will infallibly pronounce a judgment on every Pope, especially on this Pope, because he's a key Pope. He's at a key moment in Church history. He has a key power to wield. He's wielding it in one direction, which I think is wrong, but I'm only a single Catholic and he's Pope. And I'm not in the catbird seat. I don't know what he knows that makes him act as he does. I pray for him, and I will continue to honour him and defend him as my Pope. I will not agree with him when he teaches me something that goes against what I've been taught.
And a Catholic need not follow something that, let's say, goes against the faith, let's say like, or the traditions of the Church, let's say like his ecumenism.
No need whatever. In fact, you shouldn't. St. Thomas and all the saints say, if a bishop or a pope teaches something which you know from your tradition, from your teaching, from your catechism, from your parents, from your school, from your church, is not what the Church has taught, you have no reason to follow it. You can say, no, Holy Father, I won't accept that, and still be a loyal Catholic. In fact, you are bound to do that for the sake of truth. You're bound to. The idea that when a Pope says something, that says you can't open your mouth, that's not Catholicism at all.
Now, a lot of people too have difficulty understanding just what is his strategy, and I think you've mentioned in the past that for the first 10 years or so of his pontificate, wasn't it directed towards a geopolitical strategy of bringing down the Iron Curtain?
Yes, it was. Up to 1981, he was persuaded that he had a long reign in front of him and that solution of problems was at a long, long range. Then he was shot. And as you know, when he lay in Gemelli Hospital in Rome, he had a vision. He had the Fatima vision. He saw it. God revealed it to him. He saw the whole thing. And he suddenly sent for his personal secretary and got the copy of The Secret, which he hadn't studied, and read it. And then he called a famous nun, a very well-known nun who was an expert on Fatima, and sent her to Portugal to talk with Sister Lucia. And when he came out, it was quite obvious that he had another geopolitical purpose in mind. He now knew that he wasn't going to live for a long time in his papacy. He wouldn't last a long time. He also knew that Russia was finished, the Soviet Union was finished, but that Russia wasn't. And he set out, therefore, to exercise as much geopolitical influence as he could. When he then started in geopolitics, he still relied on secular organization. He wasn't acting merely and simply through faith, the arms of faith. No, he was doing politics, and it was the geopolitics of reason, not the geopolitics of faith. And by 1989-90, he had become totally immersed in geopolitics of reason. And he was a great friend of Gorbachev's, and he had become very close to the Americans, and he relied on secular movements to bring about spiritual ends. And it didn't happen. It only got worse.
So they did succeed in bringing down the Iron Curtain.
No doubt about it.
But it didn't have the fruits that he had, spiritual fruits that he had hoped for.
No, it hadn't. Because you see, he made a mistake. The same mistake as Paul VI made, and same as John the 23rd made. And Bernard, I have asked myself again and again, why the three popes made this mistake. The Queen of Heaven gave a mandate. She said, consecrate Russia to me on one day, all you bishops together, and Russia will be converted to Catholicism. I mean, it doesn't merely convert it, will become Catholic, and Marxism will be finished, and there'll be no chastisement. If you don't do that, my son is going to punish you all. And John the 23rd and Paul VI and John Paul II All three neglected this. John the 23rd said the children didn't know what they were saying. They thought Russia was a whore in the streets of Lisbon. And anyway, I'm talking with Nikita Khrushchev. This was 1960, 1962, and he will allow observers to come to my Vatican Council if I don't condemn Marxism. And therefore John XXIII didn't allow the fathers of the Council to condemn Marxism. And he certainly would not publish he said, we will not publish this letter ever. It will never be published. And I will not consecrate Russia. Because if I did that, Nikita Khrushchev would know, and he'd consider it an act of war. All the bishops, Catholic bishops, gathered in a place, 2,700 of them in the Vatican, and they condemn Russian Marxism, Soviet Marxism. Come on, it's war. There's going to be persecution. That's John XXIII's reason. Paul VI simply was afraid of his own shadow, and besides, he didn't believe in Fatima. John Paul II sort of believed in Fatima, sort of. He didn't quite believe in Fatima. And he decided that he couldn't do it because he wasn't the Pope of 1960. And Lucia had originally said the Pope of 1960 must do the consecration. So he did nothing about it. In fact, he permitted the suppression of Sister Lucia and permitted the suppression of the message of Fatima to a large extent throughout the Church, because his Secretary of State, Casseroli, who is an atheist as far as I'm concerned, he exercised himself as Secretary of State through all Vatican representatives to suppress Fatima as much as possible. For instance, the apostolic delegate in Lisbon and his entire staff were very favourable to Fatima. Casseroli changed them all and put in somebody who was not sympathetic. And so on and went on like that. So why is it that these three popes, the last three popes, refused? And when John Paul II was asked to now consecrate Russia, no, all he could do was kneel in St. Peter's Square, and in the middle of a consecration of the human race, the Immaculate Heart of Mary, he said, and also we consecrate to her care the people who are awaiting their consecration to her Immaculate Heart. What sort of gobbledygook is that? For me, that's gobbledygook, and disgusts me on John Paul II's lips. He's supposedly a knight of the Immaculate Queen. He's supposedly a member of Maximilian Kolbe's group of knights fighting, and he wouldn't do this. So I mean, I think it all goes back to Lucifer. He just has too much power within the prelacy of the Church, within the organization. He's able to squeeze everybody who attempts something.
And so Lucifer has paralyzed whatever efforts there have been, let's say, to do what the Mother of God actually wanted.
Yeah, this is the Queen of Heaven. And even if John XXIII said Nikita Khrushchev will declare war on us, he can say, well, you want this done, you must have some plan. Trust. No trust. No trust. So I think it is clear to me that the will of Christ is that these three popes should destroy the organization of the Church, which they have. They've destroyed the organization. They've been instrumental. And they will answer for it. And in the case of John Paul II and John XXIII and Paul VI, it's malfeasance in high office. They're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to take care of that. They didn't.
So to get back then to the original question, the reason why John Paul II's geopolitical strategy ultimately failed to bring, let's say, the spiritual fruits that he would have wanted is because he used the methods that weren't prescribed by Our Lady.
That's right. That's why he wasn't relying on purely spiritual means. Purely spiritual means. And therefore, and he didn't do what she said. She said, consecrate Russia to my Immaculate Heart, all you bishops, on the same day, using the same formula if possible. Do it. And publish this secret to the world. Publish the secret. No, we won't publish the secret ever, they say now. And John Paul II said from the beginning, we will not publish it. And his judgment is gone awry. I mean, he receives Fidel Castro and Gorbachev within the same 36 hours and honors them. You don't honor people of that nature. If you have to talk to them, you talk to them very privately and you send it through a Monsignore or a bishop, of which he has many, you don't honor them with a papal visit.
Now, you just mentioned Gorbachev, and the book Windswept House spoke a lot about Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Does Russia still play an important role in the message of Fatima, even though the Iron Curtain has come down?
It does. It does. And I said to you, and I think it's true, that there's some unfinished chapter or paragraph in John Paul II's life before he dies in connection with Russia. His destiny is tied with Kiev in Ukraine and with Moscow. Why, I don't know, but I know this much. That's what he has told me, and I believe it. There's something connected there. Now, as regards the message of Fatima, it still stands. It still stands. The errors of Russia are now abroad, and they are abroad. Russia will be converted, finally, by my Immaculate Heart, she said. It will be, she said it. But a bit late, but not too late, she said. So Russia is within the plan. Why? That would take me too far afield into papal secrets. Why Russia and Kiev are involved in the final solution of this problem. But they are. They're part and parcel. And it's really God's choice. It's purely and simply God's choice, like He chose the Jews to bring His Son into the world through them. He makes choices. He has His own favourite solutions for things. I wouldn't have chosen the Russians or Kiev or the East for salvation, but salvation is to come from the East for us all. And John Paul II is inevitably tied into it. His great pain is that he failed, and he did fail.